What is it like to own a new Mazda 3, and should you buy one? That's what we're going to find out. Welcome to Car Corner, where we help you, the consumer, master the process of car buying and car ownership. As some of you might know, I bought a brand new Mazda 3 sedan at the beginning of 2023, and I'm going to share what it has been like to own over the past year, whether I made the right decision, all of the good, the bad, and yes, unfortunately, there was some very bad. And I'm also going to review a 2024 Mazda 3 and see how it compares, and tell you everything there is to know before you consider buying one. But before we get into it, remember, if you enjoy and get value out of this video, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. So first off, let's recap why I decided to buy a Mazda 3 in the first place. Basically, I was looking for an affordable car that was going to be reliable, good on gas, and had low running costs. And based on that criteria, I narrowed my decision down to a Mazda 3, a Honda Civic, or a Toyota Corolla. And realistically, any one of those cars would have accomplished these goals. They're all affordably priced, they all have very good reputations for reliability, resale value, and just being very affordable to own. But there were a number of reasons why I decided to narrow my decision down to the Mazda 3. The first reason is style and design. I'm a huge fan of the way the Mazda 3 looks. It just has this really nice upscale sense of style to it that not only matches my taste, but just really looks good. And I'm really happy with the color combination that I got, the polymetal gray metallic paint, with the black accents like the black mirror caps, the black 18-inch alloy wheels, and I even upgraded the grille to a black grille surround to match the rest of the trim. It gives this car a really sharp and sporty look, which I really like. Compared to the Civic and Corolla, the Mazda 3 also has a more upscale, more premium feeling interior. It's actually really impressive how Mazda manages to nail the feeling of a luxury car, but without that luxury car price tag. The interior just has really nice, high quality materials, excellent fit and finish, and you can also get it in a few really nice color options. For example, you can get it in a full black interior or a really nice off-white leather, or in the case of my car, a red leather interior, which I think looks particularly sharp. And again, these are the type of choices that you normally don't find in a car that's in this price range, so the sense of design, the style, and the luxury feel was a huge factor for me in choosing this car. But it wasn't just the design, it was also the sporty feel, which is something that Mazda has become extremely well known for. The Mazda 3 is a great driving car. It has really nice handling, precise, heavy steering, and just a really fun to drive, sporty feel to it, which is something that I really like. Certainly, both the Civic and Corolla are also great driving cars, but there's something about the way the Mazda 3 feels that's just a little bit nicer. Now, it's certainly not the smoothest riding car. You do sacrifice a little bit of ride quality for that sportiness, but for me that was perfectly fine. Another major reason why I chose this car was for the drivetrain. Unlike the Civic and Corolla, which both have very small displacement 4-cylinder engines with a CVT, the Mazda 3 has a proper, large displacement 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine with a conventional 6-speed automatic transmission. The 6-speed automatic does make a difference. I just prefer the way it feels over a CVT, and it also has proven reliability and longevity to it, which is another great bonus. The same is also true of the engine. This is Mazda's Skyactiv naturally aspirated 2.5-liter engine that produces around 186 horsepower and 186 pound-feet of torque. It really is a nice engine. It has more than enough power for daily driving. It's relatively smooth and refined. It has decent fuel economy, averaging around 28 to 35 miles per gallon, or roughly 7 to 9 liters per 100 kilometers. And it also has really well proven reliability. Mazda has now been using the same engine and transmission combination for over a decade, and it has proven to be extremely solid and relatively trouble-free. Now, of course, this is not the only configuration of the Mazda 3 that you can get, even though I chose to go with the sedan with the naturally aspirated engine and front-wheel drive. You can also get it as a hatchback, and it also offers the option of a turbocharged engine and also all-wheel drive. Now, to find out if any of these upgrades are really worth the extra money and if I made the right decision, I think it's time to hop behind the seat of the 2024 model and see how it compares to mine. Okay, behind the wheel of the 2024 Mazda 3. Now, to make this a proper comparison, I asked Mazda to give me a model that's the complete opposite of the one that I own. So instead of a sedan with front-wheel drive and the naturally aspirated engine like my car, this 2024 model is a hatchback with all-wheel drive and the turbo engine. Now, are all of these upgrades really worth the extra money? Well, first off, I can say that the extra power that you get with the turbo engine is definitely noticeable. Unlike the naturally aspirated engine, which now makes 191 horsepower and 191 pound-feet of torque, this turbocharged engine makes 250 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque. Now, it does require premium fuel in order to make those numbers, but you can run it on regular fuel perfectly fine, where it makes just a little bit less power. Either way, the extra power that you get from the turbo, along with having a little bit more traction with the all-wheel drive, is definitely noticeable, and it elevates the performance of this car to a higher level, closer to that of something like an entry-level luxury car. I mean, it's not too common to find options like all-wheel drive and a 250 horsepower engine on a car like this. You normally find those things on something like a way more expensive Audi or BMW. But the bigger question is, are these upgrades really necessary to have? And after spending a week behind the wheel of this car, I can say that I don't think that they really are. I mean, it's nice to have all-wheel drive and that extra power, but it's really not that necessary. And when you're driving this car normally, you really don't notice those differences all that much. And I know a lot of buyers consider all-wheel drive to be a real necessity. As long as you're using proper winter tires in the wintertime, like I am, then front-wheel drive can be perfectly fine. And really, aside from those two changes, this car drives basically the same. It still has the same amazing solid feel, the excellent handling, and that sporty feeling that makes it a great driving car. Now, whether it makes sense to buy the hatchback over the sedan body style is really a personal choice. Personally, for me, having the little bit of extra cargo space wasn't really that important or necessary, so for me the sedan works perfectly fine. But I can really see how having that extra practicality with the hatchback would be a huge bonus for a lot of buyers. Either way, practicality and space is not really a major strong suit of the Mazda 3. You don't have a huge amount of interior space, especially when compared to something like the Honda Civic. The back seats are definitely a little bit on the tight side, and if you're a taller person, you might not be the most comfortable driving this car. But if the space works for you, this is a really nice interior, and Mazda did make some really nice upgrades for 2024. Mazda has added some new color combinations like the zircon sand metallic paint and these two-tone terracotta and black leather seats with suede inserts. They've even added some suede accents on the dash, which adds a really nice luxurious touch. Again, I keep coming back to that point of this having a really nice premium feel to it. The use of materials, the fin finish, the switchgear, and the general build quality really elevate this car above a lot of its competition. Mazda has also made some nice upgrades to the technology for 2024. For example, the infotainment system, compared to having wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto like my car, now has wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You can also now use it as a touchscreen, and the screen itself is also now a little bit wider. For the most part, however, you still need to use the rotary dial on the center console, which does take some time to get used to, but it's actually fairly intuitive once you're used to it. And I really like how you still get traditional controls for all of your climate functions, which are really easy to use, and you also have really nice, simple, and clear gauges. I also really like all of the great active safety technology that comes on this car, my favorite feature being the surround view camera system, which comes on the higher trims. And it's also worth mentioning that all versions of the Mazda 3 have a top-notch safety rating from the IIHS, being one of the safest compact cars that you can buy. And considering everything that you get, the pricing for the Mazda 3 is actually very reasonable. The pricing for an entry-level model starts around $25,000. And even though the pricing can go as high as $35,000 to $40,000 for an all-wheel drive turbo model, you can get a really nicely equipped car like my car for around the $30,000 range, which is actually not too bad. So there's no doubt that the Mazda 3 is a really great value for what you're getting. But the next question is, what has this car been like to live with for the past year? Has it been great or has it been a total pain? And this is where things start to get a little bit more interesting. Okay, so I think you can gather from watching this video so far that I really have enjoyed owning this car. For the most part, it has been really great. I love the way it looks, I love the way it drives. It really feels a lot more expensive than it is. And even after testing a lot more expensive luxury cars and hopping back behind the wheel of this car, it really doesn't feel like much of a downgrade. This is a great car overall, and for the most part, I really have not been disappointed with it. Now, before we get to the bad part, let's go over what it has been like to own in terms of maintenance and repairs. Now, thankfully, the reliability of this car has met my expectations. It has been absolutely rock solid. No major issues, no minor issues even. It has been an absolutely dead reliable car, which is exactly what I was expecting buying one of these in the first place. And the maintenance hasn't been too bad either. In the past year, I've had to take it to the dealership 2 times for 2 separate services. The first service was a very basic maintenance service where they basically did a bunch of inspections, topped up the fluids, and thankfully it wasn't too expensive, just a little over $60. And the second service, which was more recently, that was a more major service that did everything that the first service had, plus an oil change. And that one was about $120. And aside from that, I've also had to spend a little bit of money to change the tires from the summer tires to the winter tires. And aside from that, it hasn't cost me anything else. No unexpected issues, no warranty claims, no, nothing really. Now, some of you might be wondering, why exactly have I been taking the car to the dealership as opposed to taking it to an independent shop for maintenance or even doing some of the work myself? Well, there's a really good reason for that, and this is something that any buyer of a brand new vehicle really needs to understand. It is never a good idea to do any work yourself when you buy a brand new car. You always want to make sure that you have that documentation from a reputable independent shop, or better yet, from the dealership, to show that you've been following the maintenance schedule and that you have all your receipts for all of your service visits, including all of the oil changes. That way, if you ever have a warranty issue down the road and the dealership asks to see your maintenance records, you have all that documentation to prove that the car was maintained properly. Now, you're not going to have that if you do any of the work yourself. If you do your own oil changes, you might think that you're saving a few bucks, but the dealership or the manufacturer is not going to consider that or use that if you have a problem with, say, your engine or your transmission. And if you don't have that documentation, they could use that to deny you a warranty claim, which could turn into a major headache and, of course, a major expense. So whenever you buy a brand new vehicle that's under warranty, or any vehicle that's under warranty really, make sure that you're having it maintained by the dealership or by a reputable independent shop, and keeping all of your receipts so that you have that documentation just in case. And the reason why I'm going with the dealership for this is because it's just a little bit easier when you build a relationship with the dealership. If you do have a warranty issue later on, I just find that they're easier to deal with when it comes to honoring warranty claims and just helping you in general, which they might not necessarily do to the same extent if you take the car to an independent mechanic for the first few years. So just a few ownership tips there. Now, time to get to the bad part. Now, this car has been reliable, it has been great, I've enjoyed driving it, but it has not been smooth sailing for the past year. And unfortunately, a few months after buying the car, I did run into my first incident, which happened to be a car accident. Now, thankfully, nobody was hurt. It happened to be a very minor car accident, and I was not at fault either. I was sitting at a red light at an intersection, and when the light turned green and I was about to go, an oncoming car was running the red light the opposite direction and basically clipped the front corner of my car and damaged the front bumper. Now, thankfully, the damage was relatively minor. It only required replacing the front bumper and some trim. Very cosmetic. It did not affect the way the car drove in any way, but still a major bummer to, of course, buy a brand new car and have an accident with it so quickly. It was a real major downer, and luckily the car was repaired perfectly fine. I was really happy with all the repair work and basically carried on And then what happened? A few months go by and I have a second car accident. That's right, 2 car accidents within the span of the very first year of ownership. And oddly enough, the second car accident was very similar to the first one. Very minor, only minor cosmetic damage. And again, I was not at fault. I was sitting at a stop sign and a car was coming. It turned around the corner and it clipped the same front corner of the car that the first car accident did. So same damage, exact same spot, and very similar circumstances. I could not believe it, having another car accident in such a short amount of time, especially considering that in the past I never really had car accidents. This was my first experience being in that situation. I've helped many consumers who have been in that situation before, but first time happening to me, and now I can really sympathize with people who've gone through that. And if you've owned a brand new car and had a car accident relatively quickly, well, I can tell you it does not feel great, and I know what you're going through. Now, as mentioned again, both accidents were extremely minor and the repair was relatively easy, stress-free, and it did not affect the car in any way. The car was perfectly drivable in both situations, and luckily it did not require anything major, only very light cosmetic repair work, which is the good side. And on the bright side, I did use it as an opportunity to make some upgrades. Because the front bumper was being replaced anyway, I decided to replace the original chrome trim with a gloss black trim, which matches the black mirror caps and the black 18-inch wheels. So I really like the way the car looks overall. It looks a little bit sportier, more similar to the hatchback, and I'm really happy I was able to at least do some good out of a bad situation. Now, thankfully, I don't have any more bad news to share. Those 2 accidents within the first year, I know that's already a lot to take in and a lot of bad luck to have with a new car, but I guess it could have been much worse. I did not have any major mechanical issues, no dealer issues, no repair issues, nothing like that. So hopefully it's smooth sailing from here, but so far it's been a rocky start, and hey, I can only hope for the best. And what I can really say is that thankfully these things have nothing to do with the car itself. The car has been absolutely great. It's been a great ownership experience. I love everything about it, the way it looks, the way it drives, the interior, the quality. It really is a top-notch car that really punches above its weight, which is why I picked it as the winner of the best affordable car of the year when I did my Car of the Year awards a little bit earlier. So if you are considering buying an affordable compact car, really give the Mazda 3 a close look, and I really don't think that you're going to regret it. So there you have it. I'll do another update video on this car down the road if you guys like seeing this kind of thing. But in the meantime, let me know what you thought of this video. Just leave a comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. You can also take a look at my other videos by clicking these links over here. Make sure to follow me on Instagram. And if you need additional car buying advice, recommendations, or help with getting a great deal on your next new car purchase, make sure to visit carhelpcan.com. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.